Hey friends, welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast with your host, Kristen,
Nicole,
and Hannah. Come join our porch swing conversations.
filled with lots of faith, hope, and heart.
Hey Postables, we are back with another episode, and today we will be recapping From the Heart with our good friend, Chad. Welcome back to the podcast, Chad.
Hi, glad to be back. Now, before we get going, since we're going to be talking about a Valentine movie, I brought a rose for you.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. And I brought you a box of candy, Hallmark candy. Look at that. Except since you can't eat it, I guess I'm going to have to.
Oh, where'd you get that Hallmark candy? That's awesome.
I purchased it online. Was it on Hallmark's website? I can't remember, but it was somewhere.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So, From the Heart, it premiered on February 21st, 2016. It guest stars Nick Percha as young Ryan, Mackenzie Cardwell as young Maddie, Aaron Craven as Governor Ryan Hallett, Holly Alyssa as Maddie, Jill Morrison as Hazel, and Amelia Ulrup as Dale. In Signs Have Delivered, From the Heart, the beloved Postables discover a 200-year-old Valentine that could change history, while their investigation of a damaged letter leads them to a public figure who could be brought down by its contents. And in the aftermath of Valentine's Day, Oliver, Shane, Norman, and Rita are each dealing with heartbreaking circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first watched this movie, what were your thoughts about From the Heart?
My initial thoughts?
Yeah, what you thought of the movie.
I like the dead letter story. I like the Shane and Oliver story. I like the Norman and Rita story. It was okay. I didn't like them getting mad at each other though, but other than that, it was okay.
Yeah, I didn't like that part either. I hated seeing them at odds, but it was still a good story all around for the letter and Shane and Oliver and Rita and Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll mention it a little bit when we get to it, but just Martha's weaving in this movie, and of course throughout the entire series, is just incredible. It never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that later. There are a lot of parallels going on in this story.
Yeah.
Parallel storylines.
Yeah. So do we want to start with the letter story, or the two letter stories, actually?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. There's two letter stories. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we'll start there.
So the movie starts with a beautiful narration from Martha herself, which I loved. It shows a young woman. She's writing a message on a Valentine's Day card. It is St. Valentine's Day, 1835. And part of the card reads, "They call it a Valentine, my dear, and they tell me it's all the rage in England these days. Of course, a gentleman like you has little interest in the new styles. But if Valentines ever become popular in America, then you will likely receive many of these in your life. And I want to give you your first, as it will surely be the only Valentine and the last that I will ever give to you."
That's right.
Yes.
When you saw that opening scene, the first time you saw the movie, did you understand what was going on there? Because I didn't.
No, not at all. I had no idea that would be another letter story in the movie,
right?
Or a second letter story,
right? But I didn't understand who she was writing to until later in the movie.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I didn't know either.
Yeah,
but I loved us being able to find out who it was. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
The next scene in regard to the letter story is a flashback to 15 years earlier. We see a young teenage boy. He puts a letter in the mailbox, and then he sits by a police car for the officer to show up. And he says, "Excuse me, officer, where do I turn myself in?"
Mm-hmm. What happened? What's he confessing to?
Yeah, for a split second, I thought that the young teenage boy was Oliver.
Oh, you did?
Did you think the same thing or no?
No. You thought that, huh?
You know why I thought that, honestly?
Well, I think because Oliver was reading the letter in the diner, right? When that flashback started.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. That's probably
that's
why I thought that.
That's probably why. You may have thought
Yeah.
he was thinking about himself. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly why. You're right.
Uh,
But I'm so glad that it wasn't.
Yes, he was already feeling guilty about one thing. He didn't need to feel guilty
Yeah.
about something else.
We get another flashback scene from 15 years earlier and a high school debate team competition. Now, this is when Ryan and Maddie first meet.
Mm-hmm.
Although they don't meet in this first scene of the debate. They meet second scene, but
Right.
this particular scene, they're actually having the debate for whatever topic they were talking about. I cannot remember. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't pay that close attention.
But I know that Ryan, I think, made some kind of joke, and
Yeah.
Maddie just rolled her eyes and
Yeah. There was some
was like,
joke.
"Oh, please."
Uh-huh. Right.
Uh,
They talk about it later. He made some point. He made up some fact in his.
yeah, he had made up
his
a fact
debate
about
thing.
something.
Yeah, about something that was ridiculous. She thought it was ridiculous.
Ryan and Maddie meet for the first time. So this is the second scene of the first debate competition. I loved this exchange right here. I didn't write down the whole thing, but this one line from Maddie, she says, "You might be able to skate through the early debates on charm and folksy storytelling, but when you get to state next spring, if you get to state, they'll be looking for substance, not seduction."
Because old Ryan's a charmer.
Yes, yeah. In the next scene that we see, he realized that he isn't a great debater. He's just a good showman. Then we get a quote from the letter from Ryan to Maddie. He says, "I never thought you'd be anything more to me than to beat this year. What scares me is what you're going to think of me now. I never meant to hurt you, and I never meant to." And this is when Oliver is in the cafe reading the letter.
Mhm.
And I wrote in my notes, what could cause Oliver to make that reaction?
Mm-hmm.
What did Ryan do?
Mm-hmm.
It's so astonishing.
Uh,
The next scene, Oliver brings the letter to Shane, and she reads that same line that Oliver had just read. It says, "I never meant to hurt you last night, Maddie, and I never meant to kill anyone."
ooh. Yeah.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
serious stuff right here.
I know.
What could he have done to kill someone when
I
he's
know.
just a minor?
And Shane and Oliver are all concerned.
Yeah. We have Norman and Rita in the mailbox grill with their almost kiss. So they're holding up the vintage Valentine that we see in the beginning of the movie. It has a linen on a silk postmarked by hand, or it was postmarked by hand in 1835. It is addressed to Postmaster Mr. We don't know the name, New Salem, Illinois. And I wrote, who could that be? Postmaster? Did you immediately think when he said postmaster, it was Abraham Lincoln?
No, I still didn't know. I'm not good in history.
Part of me think that part of me believed right away that it was Abraham Lincoln, because I do remember there being a reference in, I believe, one of the series episodes when they said that Abraham Lincoln was Postmaster General.
Oh, they mentioned that? Oh, okay.
I think so. I cannot remember which episode, but I'm pretty sure that they did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew he was from Illinois.
Yeah. The movie cuts back to Shane and Oliver in the DLO, and they're talking about Ryan's letter. She says that the envelope is useless and half the pages are singed. All that she and Oliver have so far are 2 high school debates from 15 years ago, which puts Maddie at around 16 or 17 years old. Debate competitions move around every month from host school to host school, like a football season. She could live anywhere in the tri-state area, and a good debater spends so much time researching and prepping every possible topic that they don't have time to kill anyone.
I don't have time to kill anyone.
And then, well, I'll go ahead and bring it up now, since, we're on this scene, but I love how, Oliver kind of looks at her like, surprised that she knows all the information. And, she said something along the lines of, I debated in high school.
Yeah.
And Oliver just looks at her again and he's like, astonishing.
Yeah, that surprised me too. I can't see her character being on the debate team in high school.
Oh my goodness. Shane is running a search for all high school debate teams from 15 years ago in Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. I also love how Oliver moves the big stuffed panda from the chair and, kind of puts it off to the side so that she can, sit down in the chair. I thought that was really sweet of him to do.
Wait, there was a panda? Wait, where was that?
Yeah, it was the panda, or yeah, I think it was a panda. It was sitting in the chair and it had all the postage stamps on it.
Was it a Valentine panda or bear or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think it was some kind of like Valentine's gift.
Is that the one that Norman rips later in the movie?
No.
Oh, that's a different one. Oh, that's a different one. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I got to go back and watch the movie. I missed the panda. All right.
I thought that was really nice. So he, picks up the panda and moves it so that she could sit down. What a gentleman.
Of course. Ollie is a gentleman.
Yes. The line I love in that scene after she sits down and she looks at the big stuffed panda, she says, people do crazy things for Valentine's, don't they? And Oliver says, I suppose.
I suppose.
Oh my goodness. We get a flashback of the second competition. The resolution was the national minimum drinking age law should be repealed. We find out that Maddie is from Wyoming when they announced that her school's debate team has moved on to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and Maddie roller skating. I loved this scene, just the banter back and forth between them. I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
I have some of the dialogue written down and some of the things we find out in that scene. She says that she doesn't roller skate to have fun. She does it to prepare for the debates. She picks a topic. And left is pro, right is con. Ryan mentions something about Abraham Lincoln, and Maddie says, "You are not Abraham Lincoln." And Ryan says, "True, but I bet I could be a good president one day." And then Maddie says, "Well, you could like play one on TV." He knows how to sell an idea, but is short on statistics. She's great with research, but she never smiles. He's got to learn to use his head, and she has to learn to use her heart. So they agree to help each other out. And then we get the scene, we get the moment with Brand New Key playing in the background in the montage.
Is that when they showed them skating and holding hands?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have a few scenes of some of the debates, and there's one of them with a clip of Maddie. I guess she's talking about a topic for the debate, and she picks up one of her note cards and it says, "Don't forget to smile."
Yeah. Now,
And
did
then
you also
Ryan's
notice?
kind of standing off to the side.
Yeah. Now, did you also notice on that scene in the background, there's Halloween decorations in the background?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So it must take place in October. Apparently, that debate did.
Yeah, that's a good point. I missed that. I'll have to watch for it the next time.
Yeah, there's a bat and a pumpkin, and a couple pumpkins hanging on the walls behind them.
Ryan and Maddie, they're sitting by a tree and they share their first kiss, which I thought was really sweet. I have two of the lines written down from that scene. She says, "You might even make it to state, maybe." And Ryan says, "Are you basing that on your research, or are you finally trusting your instincts?" Back to the DLO with Shane and Oliver, and they're talking more about the letter. Shane reads more of the letter, which says, "I keep thinking how different everything would be now if I kissed you that day. But I did, and nothing will ever be the same." That's words from Ryan. And then Shane says, "He kissed her and everything changed." And then Oliver says, "Everything certainly changed for whomever he killed." And then, there's a pause, and he says, "That kiss set something into motion and someone died." And then Shane starts filtering the program to search for fatalities occurring around the time the mailbox blew up. It was Saturday, March 24th at 4:15 in the afternoon. And then I also wrote, how can Oliver know the exact date? What has he not shared? The next scene we get is with Oliver and Norman. And it's one of my favorite scenes between these two in the entire canon. I love the dialogue. I love the scenery. It's just a really beautiful moment between two really good friends and colleagues. Oliver says, "The course of true love never did run smooth." Then he goes on to say that he and Rita, they have finally declared their feelings for each other and put their raft in the river. They hit a few rocks along the way, but they have begun the journey. Norman shows Oliver the vintage Valentine, and they start talking about it and, the history between the letter writer and the person receiving the letter. Norman says he was rafting on the Illinois River in 1831 when he hit some rocks. That's how he ended up in New Salem, where he met Anne Rutledge. And Oliver goes on to say, the story goes they were secretly engaged to marry. Then Norman continues and says, but nobody knows for sure because Anne died of typhoid and Abraham Lincoln quit the post office and left New Salem forever and never talked about her again, which is really sad.
No, that is sad. Never talked to someone that he was engaged to, or they think he was
engaged to be married to. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of theories out there, but nobody knows for sure if they were in love. I love this next line from Norman talking to Oliver. He says, "Do you think you'll ever get on a raft with anyone again?" And Oliver says, "I hope so."
Ah, yeah.
And now they both are. Now they're both on a raft with
He hopes so.
the loves of their life.
That's right. He wanted to sail down the river with somebody.
Yes.
Mm.
Shane is filtering for the first name Maddie. Ryan started competing in these debates just to have something on his college application. But after a while, he started looking forward to them because it meant seeing Maddie. By the time they made it to the spring finals and were there together, he felt like he already won. This is the scene when we see the argument between Ryan and Maddie, which really breaks my heart.
She finds out that he's romanced other people in the past just to win debates.
Yeah, the argument is started by Maddie's friend Becca.
Yeah.
She thinks that Ryan has been using Maddie by roller skating with her. I have a question for you. I wrote in my notes, is she doing it just to start trouble, maybe because she's jealous, or does she honestly think that Ryan is using her best friend?
Oh, no, I think she's looking out for her friend. Because he's dated other debaters in the past to try and win debates. And
I can see where you think that, but then also the reason that I asked that question is because there was one clip, I think, in that montage, when they're showing the roller skating, and Ryan, I think, is waiting at the top of the stairs, and Maddie comes in and she joins him, and Becca is like right behind her, and then she kind of has that look like she's annoyed that Maddie's spending more time with Ryan. So that's that's why
I remember that. I remember that scene. She turns and gives him kind of a look, kind of. Yeah.
Ryan says, as Maddie and Becca are walking into the elevator, "I'm interested in the truth because you taught me to be. Just like I taught you to argue with your heart and trust your gut." And then he says, "And what is your gut telling you?" And then she says that I was a fool.
But he
ripped my heart into a million pieces.
But he admits to her that he dated other debaters in the past just to win debates, because he says it started off that way, he says.
Yeah.
But then I developed feelings for you.
Yeah.
So he does admit to using people in the past.
Yeah. No results have come for Maddie or Madeline. They have a date and competed in the finals at the Brown Palace Hotel. The next scene is Shane and Oliver and Norman at the Brown Palace. They're trying to get more information. Oliver says that the reservations were made by the schools and they did not keep records of names. The special events coordinator is busy with the Valentine's ball and can't give them a list until Monday. And this is the scene when Norman is holding the teddy bear and Shane says, "We can't wait for that. We have to give Norman something else to do besides dismantle the lobby." And then we see Norman, tear the heart off the bear. Makes me sad to see Norman sad.
I know, but why did he do that?
Because of what Rita said,
Rita said on national TV she didn't have a boyfriend.
Which we will mention in a little bit.
We'll get to later.
Yeah. Ryan felt so upset that he didn't even know what he was doing. He thought it hurt so much that he just wanted it to stop. This is the scene when we see Ryan standing outside of his car. It's nighttime, and he's drinking a lot of some alcoholic beverage. We don't know what it is. I'm guessing it's beer, but it's never really mentioned what it actually is. He gets in the car to drive, and then he runs into a trash can. I wrote in my notes, but did something else happen, especially with the headlights? They're like all banged up.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot just be from a trash can.
Was it? Yes. Was it really a trash can that he hit? That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Mm.
Maddie is in love with Ryan, and no matter who wins, she'll be waiting by the tree, and she wants to keep skating, as she says. Ryan ran into a homeless man, killing him.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sad.
A lot of sad parts in this movie.
Yeah. It is sad, but I wrote in my notes how I really loved Martha's weaving of that story along with the topic of the debate, which was homelessness.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I thought that was just, really great weaving.
Oh, yeah, I missed that. Okay.
We hear a voiceover of another part of Ryan's letter when he says, I realized two things this morning, Maddie, that I was responsible for the death of an innocent person, and that I have to take responsibility for that no matter what it means. So instead of meeting you at our tree today, I'm going to turn myself in. And then, it cuts back to Shane and Oliver and Norman at the Brown Palace Hotel, and she's reading another line from the letter. She says, just remember that when you told me you loved me and then, she's not able to finish. Oliver takes over and he repeats it. He says, just remember that when you told me you loved me, for one moment today, I was truly happy. It may be the last time I ever am. P.S. Take good care of your heart. Oh, goodness. I'm almost crying right now reading that.
Yes, but we didn't know at that point what he meant by take good care of your heart. Yeah.
Yeah. I was crying right along with Shane as that part of the letter was being read. So heart-wrenching.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Maddie is Madison Alstrup, and Ryan is Governor Ryan Hallett.
Plot thickens.
The plot thickens. Yeah, I love Shane's reaction when, the results come up and she's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's Governor Ryan Hallett.
Mm-hmm.
Or, something along those lines. But
yeah.
Shane did some research, and there's no record of the governor being involved in a hit and run or ever having received a DUI. There is a sealed record for a Ryan T. Hallett, which was filed 15 years ago with the clerk of the juvenile court. Whatever he did back then was expunged, and it gives him the legal right to say he doesn't have a criminal record.
That's right.
Maddie was living in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and working as a reporter for a local newspaper, the Cheyenne Union Post, until about a year ago when she packed up her apartment and left no forwarding address.
Why would that be?
I don't know, but we'll find out soon. The next scene we get is Shane and Oliver. They're in the USPS. They had just walked out of the DLO. They're talking about Ryan and Maddie. Shane says that Hallett is a great governor and even his opponents like him. After Shane and Oliver talk about Ryan and Maddie. She brings up the lady that Oliver used to have a crush on. She says, that lady you had a crush on, you haven't seen her in 15 years and it still bothers you that you allowed her to get in the way of performing your duties in a timely manner. Then she pauses and she says, Rita's right. I really am starting to sound like you. Yeah, I think Oliver says something, I can't remember the line, and then he walks away. Then he turns back around briefly and he says, and the police officer, I never said I haven't seen her since. Mic drop.
Yeah.
Oh, the snark.
And then the look on Shane's face.
Snarky Shane and Oliver.
Yeah, that was
Love
a good
it.
line. That was a good line.
Maddie never married. She worked in Cheyenne until last year when she got sick. Becca convinced her to come down to Denver to see a specialist, and she never left. So by this time, we know that she is in the hospital, still sick, which is really sad to think about.
Mm-hmm.
After Shane shares that piece of information with Oliver and Norman, there's a few lines said after that about if they should give Maddie the letter. And I believe Shane says something like, what's the point in giving the letter to Maddie now? And Norman says, it's always good to know you were loved. I love that line from Norman. It's really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Shane and Oliver and Norman talking to the nurse. I love this little piece of dialogue right here. When they're trying to speak to Maddie, and Shane says, we don't all have to go in, just one of us. The nurse says, how about none of you? And Norman says, but we're from the United States Post Office on official business.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurse says, you could be the governor of Colorado on official business and you still wouldn't get by me.
The nurse isn't impressed with the post office.
The thing that makes me laugh, though, is she says, you could be the governor of Colorado on official business and you still wouldn't get by me. Yeah, when Ryan comes, she lets him in.
I know, she lets him in. I know. I couldn't figure that out. I know. I know.
It's just kind of funny, like she lets him in anyway.
I know it. Because when that happened, I thought, wait a minute, she said she wouldn't even let the governor in.
Oh my goodness. The next scene is when Shane and Oliver go to meet with Ryan, who is now the governor. And I believe they're talking to his assistant, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first, yeah.
Ryan's assistant says something about how, I bet you guys have been busy this week with all the Valentine's Day cards and gifts and everything. And Shane says, 350,000 and not one of them was for me.
Uh-huh. And Oliver gets this funny look on his face. Like, what are you talking about?
I sent you a Valentine. Did you not?
Shane and Oliver, they were so confused with each other through this whole movie.
Ryan is volunteering at a soup kitchen, which I thought is really nice, to see him helping out in the community like that.
Well, that's related to the homeless guy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The homeless man was never identified. After the accident, Ryan never took another drink to spend the rest of his life making up for what he did. Then he goes on to say, talking about the letter and Maddie, for all he knew, she thought he was a user and a liar and not worth the trouble. Then he says, It's funny how two people who care about each other so much can let all their insecurities get in the way
Mm-hmm.
of the look between Shane and Oliver.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Like because the same thing is,
Uh-huh.
going on
Oh yeah.
with
Yep.
the Valentine's card.
Uh-huh. The lost Valentine card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they were teenagers, Maddie told Ryan that she had a congenital heart defect, which is really sad.
Mm-hmm. Another sad thing.
The next moment we see between Norman and Ryan, I really love. It's just a great speech and great encouragement to him before he goes to see Maddie. Ryan says, I want to tell her the truth, and I want to tell her I'm sorry. I just don't know how to tell her goodbye. Norman goes on to share Abe and Anne's story and how they met. Then he says that he had gone to say goodbye. Nobody knows what they said to each other that day, but after he left, he was never the same again. Norman says that he'd like to think that she told him not to dwell on the past or blame himself for what he couldn't change, and no one could ever understand the bond that they had. He thinks that she told him that none of it would matter if he didn't carry on after she was gone. And then Ryan goes off to see Maddie.
Yeah.
Just a really great moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Really great speech from Norman.
Yeah. Normally Oliver gives a little speech like that, but in
Yeah.
this movie it was Norman giving the speech.
Yeah,
They switched
and
it
I
up.
love that.
Uh-huh.
The next scene that we see is when Ryan goes into Maddie's hospital room and he sees her, and we get the montage, which made me a little teary-eyed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All the flashbacks from when they were teenagers, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're sweet.
Mm-hmm.
We get the second scene with Ryan and Maddie at the hospital is when he had just read her the letter. This scene always brings me to tears every single time. And Aaron does a phenomenal job in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the young woman playing Maddie does too, but Aaron really knocks it out of the park.
Right. Yeah.
Ryan tells Maddie that he loved her too. And Maddie says that she tried to take good care of her heart. After she says that, she asks Ryan, what happened with the homeless man that he had killed. And he says that when he got out of juvenile law, he tried to find out about him, but nobody knew anything except that his body was still at the county morgue waiting to be claimed. He watched and waited, and nothing came about. So 2 years later, they let him claim his ashes. One Saturday afternoon, he took his ashes to their tree, where he asked for forgiveness and made a promise that he would never forget that he'd been given another chance to live his life and had taken away the chance for the homeless man to do the same thing. He died on the 23rd of the month, and every month on that day, he makes sure to get back there and say a prayer. He's still trying to forgive himself, and when he's there, he does feel forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
Just a really beautiful moment, even though it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That was one of my favorite scenes there, that ending scene.
Yeah.
In the hospital room.
Yeah. The last thing we get with the letter story of Abe and Anne is the closing narration by Martha, which I also love.
Mhm.
And it's another part of the Valentine's card from Anne to Abe. It reads, "And so, my love, may these words explain all that has been in my heart. To you, if not joy, then light to your present darkness. And remember, tears may come at night, but there is always joy in the morning, and always the promise of a new day, if we will but believe in it. Think of me sometimes as you venture out from this safe little village, putting on all the love and all the heartbreaks of our past as gentle armor and stepping out with faith into a troubled world. You guard your heart, dear Abe, as I am and always will be your Anne." I always love the opening and closing narrations
Oh yeah. Oh
in
yeah.
these movies.
Yep. Yep.
Do we want to get into Shane and Oliver now?
Sure. Sure.
The first scene we see with Shane and Oliver's storyline is Oliver making Shane a homemade Valentine's card with the crooked heart. I thought that was really cute.
Right. And this is this parallels the storyline of Anne making that Valentine
yeah.
for Abe. Yes.
I love that parallel. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we see Oliver asking Hazel to mail the letter. This is when we get the exchange between them when he says, "Without regulations, we would have a world without order. And a world without order would be anarchy. And anarchy is," and then he stops and Hazel chimes in and she's like, "Bad?"
We can add this. This is also one of the lessons learned.
Yes.
Never give Hazel a letter to mail.
Oh my God. Even though we do love Hazel, she's a great addition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shane arrives to work and she sees Oliver. She has the dead letter in her hand and she's telling him about it. And she gives it to him and she says something else. And then she turns around and he's gone. And as she turns around, she says, "Oliver O'Toole," which I thought was really funny.
Yeah. Well, she
Really
tells him
cute.
that the letter was recovered from a mailbox that exploded.
Yeah.
That's why Oliver runs off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes, where did Oliver go?
Where did he go? Well, they show you in the next scene.
Yeah, they show us in the next scene that he went to the Gaylord Street Cafe is what.
Oh, you even wrote down the name of it? Oh, geez.
Yeah, I wrote it down because that's part of a trivia question.
No,
we'll
okay,
later.
I got you.
Rita talking to Shane about Valentine's Day and Oliver. I love this scene between Shane and Rita. Just the comedy in this scene is perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I have most of it, if not all of it, written down. And Rita says, "So you don't have a date for tomorrow?"
Mhm.
Shane says, "Well, we can't all have a Norman." Rita says, "I was kind of hoping that Oliver would." And then Shane interrupts and "What? Me and Oliver? That's ridiculous. Valentine's it's all about romance. And there's nothing romantic between me and Oliver." I send emails and he writes letters. I binge watch on my iPad and he goes to the library. I live in Cherry Creek and he lives, where does he live? You and Oliver have a thing. A thing. Chemistry does not a romance make. You're even starting to talk like him. Well, Oliver is a gentleman, and he is recently, amicably, but freshly divorced. And I doubt that he's ready to take anyone out for Valentine's, let alone a coworker. A coworker he has a lot of chemistry with. Don't end a sentence with a preposition.
Yeah, she also Norman and Rita were talking about their Valentine plans, and Shane says,
Yeah.
"Well, she tells them that they can have her reservation at Montaldo's or Montaldo's."
Yeah, I have it right here. Give me 1 second. Shane says, I'd let you guys have our reservation too at Montaldo's if I had a boyfriend and if he had the good taste to reserve a table for two at the nicest place in Denver. But I don't have a boyfriend. Nope. I work at the post office delivering other women's Valentines from their boyfriends. Then I wrote in parentheses Norman's facial expression. And then Rita, gives Norman an excuse to momentarily leave the DLO so that she can talk to Shane. And I love when Norman walks by and he's trying to give Rita a kiss as he's walking out of the DLO.
Oh, I missed that. He tried to kiss her.
I think he tried to give her a cheek kiss. But like she didn't do anything. And then Norman, turns around and he's like, is there such a thing as a fancy taco truck? And Shane and Rita are like, no.
Yeah. Because he can't figure out what to do for Rita.
Back to Shane and Oliver and their story. As we already mentioned earlier in the episode, Shane was on the debate team in high school, which surprises Oliver when he says, astonishing. Shane made sure that Angie, the barista, has a stock of emergency yoo-hoos behind the bar at the mailbox grill, which I loved this scene. Shane is looking out for Oliver.
I know.
And this is a call forward to the vows we have made when she
stocks
keeps the fridge stocked.
Yeah.
I love Oliver's line in that scene. He says, Miss McInerney, you never cease to surprise me, and I hope to someday return the favor. And that he will do.
Yes, he does later.
In just a few short movies.
Yeah, I have to have you.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure all the postables know what I'm talking about. But I might as well go ahead and say it. The green tie.
The green tie, that's right.
This next scene with Shane and Oliver is when we find out his story about how he got started in the DLO, which I really love, despite the circumstances of the mailbox blowing up. I have what he says written down. He says that he started in the post office as a zip code shelver and moved up to mail carrier. 15 years ago, he had the route where the mailbox blew up. He collected the mail from the mailbox every day at 4 p.m. He had a crush on the female police officer that covered the same beat. Most days around 4, she would be parked in front of the cafe taking a break and having a cup of coffee. Oliver made sure that he happened to be cleaning out the mailbox at the same time. And they'd have a pleasant conversation. One day she wasn't there, and instead of cleaning out the mailbox and going on his way, he stopped at the coffee shop, got a coffee, and waited to see if she'd show. A clown ran his party truck over the curb, and a tank of helium in the back tipped over and rolled onto a block of dry ice. Then Oliver goes on to say, when helium experiences a sudden change of temperature, bang, explosions happen.
It was literally a clown.
Yeah. He knew he'd never rest until he made things right, because none of those letters would have been damaged if he'd just done his job. No one ever thought to blame him, but he knew, so he volunteered to help recover them, and it was then that he realized they weren't just letters, they were lives. When he thought they were finished, he didn't want to stop. He knew he wanted to keep trying to restore what was lost, so he applied to the dead letter office.
Mm-hmm.
Shane says, and look at all the good you've done. Leave the past in the past where it belongs. I loved this moment between them and just her encouragement that she gave him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just don't hold on to the past.
Yes, and it was fun to learn about how Oliver became, working for the DLO, how the origin of that.
Yeah. Having Yoo-hoo in the mailbox grill and running into Norman. I love the first part of this scene when we see them having the Yoo-hoo and Shane drinks it straight from the bottle.
Oh, yeah.
Oliver drinks it from the glass.
Oliver looks at her, gives her a strange look, and she chugs it.
That was funny. When Shane and Oliver go to sit down with Norman, I love the dialogue in this next part of the scene. After Norman is talking about being alone on Valentine's, and Shane tells him the importance of Valentine's Day. Shane says, it's really just a made-up holiday to sell chocolate and pressure men to take you to a romantic restaurant and say they can't live without you. Unless, of course, they don't say they can't live without you. And then you just end up crying in the ladies' room. Oliver says, rather bleak assessment, Miss McInerney. I prefer to think of Valentine's as simply an opportunity for two people to recognize a mutual interest, enjoy a quiet meal, perhaps even celebrate the multifaceted nature of love as defined by the Greeks. Phileo, storge, eros, agape. Then Shane says, hence the ladies' room. And Norman says, hence? You're really starting to sound like Oliver. And Shane says, okay, well, I'm sure Oliver would be happy to take you out on Valentine's. Keep you company. And then she looks at Oliver and she says, unless you're already booked. Norman says, it's okay. I'll just have dinner with Shane. And Oliver says, no, I mean, she may already have plans. And he looks at Shane and he's like, do you?
And she's thinking, no, because I never got a Valentine from anyone.
Oh my God. And then the next line, Oliver stands up from his seat at the table and he's trying to give her hints that he sent her a card. And he says, well, Miss McInerney, it has been a long day. Shane says, it's 3:00. Oliver says, Norman can analyze Maddie's letter. I'll evaluate the historical significance of his mysterious Valentine. Why don't you just take the rest of the day off? And Shane says, I thought we had more to talk about. And then Oliver says, nothing that can't wait till tomorrow. Norman and I need some man time. Go home, relax, putter, check your mail. And Shane says, putter, okay. And then, as she walks away, you can hear her whisper, check my mail. And then Norman, looks at Oliver and he says, it must be serious if I need some man time.
And Oliver still doesn't get that Shane hasn't gotten his Valentine.
Oh my gosh. Rita runs into Hazel and Hazel asks her to give Shane her Valentine's card from Oliver, which it just goes in the box of decorations and it doesn't get to Shane until later in the movie, which we will talk about in a little bit. Shane runs into Rita at her house and Rita gives her the box that she's carrying in her arms. They're talking about the Valentine's party and how Rita isn't able to help this year because of having to go to Washington for the special delivery duties. And Shane says, I'm not staying for the party. I'm going to the gym. I'm getting a massage. Then I'm going home to eat pizza while I order discount designer shoes online. And then Rita leaves and Shane walks up the stairs to her front door. She opens her mailbox. There's nothing in it. She's like, figures.
And she's carrying the box, right? That has the Valentine.
Yeah, she's carrying the box.
Yeah.
The next scene cuts to her leaving her house, and the box is still sitting on her porch swing. She walks down the stairs, then she realizes she's leaving the box behind, so she goes back to get it and goes off to work for the day. Norman talking to Oliver about Shane. So this is after the scene where we see Shane leaving her house. Norman says, I think you wanted to ask Shane out for dinner and then you chickened out. And Oliver says, for your information and your information only, I did in fact mail her a Valentine with a personal invitation and I am awaiting her response. And Norman says, you mailed it? You couldn't just ask her? And Oliver says, I wanted to do something special. And Norman says, waiting till the last minute's pretty special. I hope you like veal.
Well, veal would be better than a fancy taco truck.
Yeah. Although I do love tacos.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
I've actually never been to a food truck though.
I don't know if I have. Yeah, I don't think I have either. Wait. Yeah, I don't think I have either. Yeah, I think even in New York City, I don't think I ate out of a food truck. No.
Oh, they have some.
Oh, they have them all over. Yeah, on the street. Yeah.
I know that they have a few in the Charleston area. I just don't remember the exact location, but just never actually been to one. But it would be fun to try it someday. Oliver and Norman, they walk in the DLO and they see Shane working at her desk. Oliver asks about the box of decorations. She goes on to say that she is now the entire decorations committee for the Postal Workers Without Dates party. Oliver says, oh, did you plan to attend that? Shane says, no, just pinch hitting for Rita. Then Norman goes on to say, Eleanor said the party is canceled because everybody got dates. Shane says, terrific. Everybody has a date tonight. And to top it off, the program I was running just froze my computer. Then Oliver excuses himself to find out what's going on with the letter. Norman turns to Shane and says, so if you're not going to the party tonight, does that mean you have a date? Shane says, Honestly, Norman, the pressure to have a date on Valentine's is both demoralizing and demeaning. Then Norman says, but if somebody were to ask you today, would you go? Shane says, this late? That would just be insulting. We see Oliver talking to Hazel about the Valentine's card. I love her line. She's like, you're really pushing it on the postage.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oliver and Norman talking behind the box, and Oliver's facial expression to the silence, after talking behind the box.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, it's time to get back to work. The comedy in that scene is just perfect.
Yeah, I forget what they said when they had that box flap held up and they were talking. I forget what they were saying. They were talking about Shane not getting the Valentine or something.
Yeah, let's see. What was it Norman said? I think he said something like, maybe she just doesn't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe she'll go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and forget it happened. I saw that in a movie somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Something along those lines. I can't remember the exact line because I don't have it written down, but Shane goes on a jog and goes by Oliver's home. I wrote down, Oliver is having a candlelight dinner and reading a book while Saving All My Love for You is playing, which I thought was really kind of cool.
Oh, I didn't notice that was the song that was playing. Oh, really?
I didn't notice it either the first time.
How did she find out his address? Because at the beginning of the movie, she didn't know his address.
I think she says later on in the movie that the route of her job just happens to take her by Oliver's home.
Okay.
When they're at Montaldo's.
Okay. I thought maybe Rita told her or something. I can't remember. All right.
She could have.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just not mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that line when they're out to dinner.
Yeah.
And she tells him that.
Yeah.
That she's jogging by his house. Yeah.
I love this next scene with Shane and Oliver when they're talking about their evening. And, Norman had just gone off to the men's room to clean up after spending the night in the DLO. Oliver said that he spent it with a friend. Shane says about her evening, it was great. Wine, candlelight, music. I wrote in parentheses, basically describes Oliver's evening.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yep.
Shane and Oliver's first conversation at the hospital about the Valentines. And, he's asking about, why she wasn't honest about getting a Valentine or not, referring to when they were about to meet Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Shane says, I didn't receive a single one this year, not even from my mother, by the way. And I think there's a few lines after that. And Oliver says, if one cannot be one's own friend, then it clicks in his mind. How did you know? And then, they kind of get interrupted because Ryan arrives to the hospital. So they don't get to finish the conversation. But when Ryan arrives to the hospital and, he's walking to where he needs to go, Oliver's following right behind him. And I love the look on his face when he turns around to look at Shane. I thought that was really funny. Like, what? Shane and Oliver's second conversation at the hospital. I love Shane's line about Norman. She says, Norman could get lost in an elevator when
Oh, yeah. When Rita's not around. Yeah.
There's a few lines after that where they're talking about the day the mailbox blew up. And think Oliver said something like, if I'd done my job, those letters would have been delivered right on time.
Mm-hmm.
And Shane says, you always say that God moves in mysterious ways. And then he starts to walk away. And Shane says, Oliver, you know I wasn't lying when I said I didn't get any Valentines. He says, have a good weekend, Miss McInerney.
Yeah, he wasn't happy.
Not happy. I think he was a little sad too at the same time.
Yeah, because he was thinking that she ignored his Valentine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shane and Norman's conversation at the USPS about Rita, Valentine's, and Oliver. So this was after she had left the hospital with Norman, and Oliver was at choir practice. Norman says, wait, you didn't go out with Oliver yesterday? No. How come? He didn't invite me. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. What about the Valentine he sent you? Am I losing my mind? I didn't get any Valentines. And then Norman says, well, something's weird. And then he asks Hazel, and she's talking about how she gave the box to Rita and the Valentine was put in the box. I love the look of realization from Hazel. She's like, and we put them in the box. And Shane's like, what box? Or maybe was that Norman that said that?
I don't know, but they realize that that's in the garbage.
Yeah. And then Shane runs off and she's like, Norman? I love this next scene with Norman and Shane when he's helping her find the Valentine in the dumpster. And, he pulls out the baby arms and he's like, you wake up in the morning and you never really know how your day is going to end.
What one of the funnier Norman lines in the whole series. Pops them together. He's like a little kid playing with them.
That's one of my favorite Norman and Shane scenes. Then they find the box with the decorations. I think Norman says something like, oh, here it is, hearts and crepe paper and stuff. And she's like, that's it. And then she finds the Valentine. I wrote in my notes, such a beautiful Valentine made from the heart.
Mm-hmm. He said, oh, look, it was handmade. That means somebody really cares about somebody.
Yep, somebody really cares about somebody. Shane meets Dale at Oliver's church. They sing in the choir together, and she is a soprano.
Yeah, she is.
I love Dale's line to Shane. She says, have you ever heard Oliver sing? Shane says, yes, no, well, sort of, not here. Yes,
This was the first time that we've ever met Dale, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Shane tells Oliver that she just found the Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
She says, am I too late for dinner? As she looks back at Dale talking to,
and Oliver's looking at
another member of their church.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote in parentheses the smile on Oliver's face when she tells him that she found the Valentine. Everything makes sense now to why she didn't respond. Shane and Oliver's dinner at Montaldo's. Shane hasn't received a homemade Valentine since Joe Cook made her one in elementary school, the second grade. He ran up to her on the playground, shoved it in her hand, and punched her in the shoulder. then they go on to talk about her by his house.
Mhm.
And Oliver says, a gentleman never makes assumptions about a lady's affairs. Then Shane says, I didn't have any affairs. I got a massage and went home to eat pizza or something along those lines. I think there's a line or two after that. And then Oliver says, sometimes matters of the heart can hurt more than, and then he stops and Shane finishes the sentence for him. And she says, a punch in the shoulder. And I think he says precisely. And then they apologize to each other, which is really sweet.
And then what happens next?
Shane asks him about the 4 aspects of love. I think the line was, and what were the 4 aspects of love defined by the Greeks? And then Oliver describes them. He says, philos, brotherly love, storge, family, or postable kind of love. And Shane interrupts him and she says, let's just cut to the chase. Which one can we dance to? I love that shot of Oliver holding out his hand to Shane. That was really sweet. Then we have the dance between Shane and Oliver, and she's asking him about Dale.
Yes.
He says that he's known her for about 15, 16 years. She asks what she does, and he says she's a police officer. And then she punches him in the
shoulder. Yeah, that was funny. Now we know. Goes back to the beginning of the movie. Now we know who that police officer was that he was waiting for when the mailbox exploded.
The last thing we see in that scene as they're continuing to dance is Oliver reciting the lines to the song, playing in the background. The water is wide. That's a really beautiful song.
Yep.
Do we want to get into Rita and Norman now?
Sure.
The first thing we see with Rita and Norman, they're making plans for Valentine's Day together, which we talked a little bit about a little while ago. Rita is asking Norman where they're going for dinner, what their plans are. I love Norman's line when he says, it's going to be a surprise if I can't find a restaurant. His reaction to her offering to cook was pretty funny too.
Yeah.
When he's reading the newspaper.
What was up with that? Yeah, what was up with that?
And he sees an ad for a veal special at a local restaurant.
Yeah, but then she says she invites him over to her place. She says, I'll cook dinner for you, but he doesn't want to go to her place.
I don't know.
He's afraid to be alone with her or something. I don't know. Because he got all nervous and said no.
Maybe he was just thinking back to the brownies that she had made and for Christmas.
Oh, that could be. That could be. I didn't think of that. That could be. Yeah.
Rita is now Miss Special Delivery and has to travel to Washington, D.C. for the unveiling of the Forever stamp. I love Norman's line when Shane comes in and Rita had just gotten off the phone with the people in Washington. He says that Mindy quit the post office and was just cast in Les Mis on Broadway. She's the really miserable one. The first runner-up is on tour with her hip-hop group, Postal Mama. The second runner-up is pregnant. The third runner-up is in jail, something to do with counterfeit Elvis commemoratives.
Uh-huh.
So then, Shane figures out that Rita is now Miss Special Delivery too.
Uh-huh. And Rita, she wasn't too thrilled. I don't know. She just kind of had this weird look on her.
She didn't want to miss her first romantic dinner with Norman. Their first Valentine's together.
Yeah, even though Norman didn't want to go to her place for dinner.
Shane says, how about a nice romantic lunch?
No lunch.
Norman goes on to say that he has to meet Serge at the Mailbox Grill.
Serge, yes, I love Serge.
Yes.
One of his many cousins, right?
Yes. Their conversation in the Mailbox Grill about the special delivery and seeing Serge and talking about the vintage Valentine. I love when Rita and Norman, they share the kiss, and one of their fellow postal workers, comes to stand in front of them and takes a selfie. She says, first tweet of Miss Special Delivery, congratulations.
Uh-huh. And Rita's like, oh, geez.
Rita describing one of the Valentines, when Serge had arrived and they're looking at all of them. As she's opening it, she says, my heart leaps for you. I think it's one of those pop-up Valentines.
Yeah, it was.
All the vintage Valentines are from Serge's private collection that he got at the pawn shop. Serge has taken a vow of silence because he's moving to Minnesota to join the Little Brothers of Perpetual Frost, a monastic order dedicated to meditation and contemplative ice fishing.
Yep, except there's one card he doesn't. Rita says something, and there's one card he doesn't have a response to, so he has to say it.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't have a card for that.
I don't have a card for that. He says, why don't you come up to Minnesota? We'll go fishing or something like that.
Yeah. I just had to mention that, one particular little bit with Serge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Serge is funny.
He heard Rita and Norman are in love and gave them all the vintage Valentines. He's also taken a vow of poverty. And then, after Serge finishes his conversation with Rita and Norman, he says goodbye and then leaves the Mailbox Grill. Rita and Norman, they continue their conversation, and she says that it's time to go to the airport, and Norman offers to drive her there. And Rita says that, oh, you don't have a car.
Boy, she says that to Norman?
Something like that, I think.
Yeah, Norman can't drive.
For the offer.
Norman can't drive anyway.
No, yeah, she thanks him for the offer, and she says, but you don't have a car.
Yeah. Of course, at this point, we don't know that Norman can't drive.
No.
We don't find out till later. Yeah.
She says that she'll think of him every day, which is really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to the next scene. Rita in her first press conference. This scene kind of makes me sad.
Oh, yeah.
She says, that wasn't a kiss. That wasn't my boyfriend. He's just a coworker who had something in his eye. I don't have a boyfriend. I'm free as a bird.
I know. Norman was all excited to watch the press conference. And
Yeah.
then she said that.
I wrote in my notes, poor Norman, why did Rita say that?
I know it.
I'm glad that Shane and Oliver were there. to,
Mm-hmm.
be there for him.
Yeah, what did they say to him? Did they give him a reason? I can't remember about why she would say that. I don't remember what their response.
I know that Norman and Rita had that phone conversation later on in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Norman asks her a question about something, and Rita says, the world is a different place now. Everybody tells everybody everything. They post it or they tweet it. Then it's just out there forever. And Norman says, are you saying that we're not forever?
Yeah, I know. Poor Norman.
Rita says, this is our life. We're not somebody's hashtag.
Yeah. And then Norman goes and asks Oliver what a hashtag is. You know what a hashtag is? And what's Oliver say? Let's not go there, because neither one of them
he
know.
says, Norman, let's not go there. I love the line before that when Norman says Rita had gone viral with our own hashtag, and Oliver says, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I am outraged.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was funny.
And back to the phone conversation. Norman says, I'll see you on Monday. Until then, I guess you're free as a bird. Then he hangs the phone up.
Hangs up on her. I know. I can see at Rita's point where she wanted to keep their relationship private. Didn't want everyone to know about it. But then in the bathroom there, when Norman's talking to Oliver, he says to Oliver, well, if you loved someone, wouldn't you want the world to know about it?
Yeah.
So I can kind of see both of their points.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shane finds that Norman was at the DLO all night. I love this scene, when she walks in and she sees him asleep at his desk.
Mm-hmm.
He's holding the picture of Rita in his hand. And they're talking about the vintage Valentine. Shane says, somebody sure did care about somebody. Then we see Norman turn the picture of Rita over.
Yeah, did Norman make Rita a Valentine?
I don't know. We never really see it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I'm guessing that he did. They probably just didn't show it.
Yeah.
Oliver walks in and he sees Norman and, realizes that he had slept in the DLO, and he says, you don't look like yourself, or something like that. And I love Oliver's line, a gentleman must never forsake his morning ablution.
Yeah, I know. I think I had to look that word up.
I don't think I'd ever heard that word before I watched it.
I know that either. I know.
His morning ablution.
Yeah.
The last scene we get of Rita and Norman is in the DLO. And, she's sitting down and she's holding the big cue cards, or whatever you want to call them, in her hand. With all the different sayings. And Norman tells her that he thought he lost her, and she gets up and she approaches him. She says, that's impossible. Wherever I go, I will always carry you with me. Norman goes on to say, I want you on my raft. Rita says, what on earth does that mean?
I know.
Norman says, I love you. And then Rita says, I love you too. That's one of my favorite Norman and Rita scenes.
That one? Yeah. I want you on my raft. That's funny.
Yeah. Just the way he says it, I want you on my raft. Do we want to talk about the lessons that we learned from this movie?
Sure.
So the first one I have written down is from Oliver, and he says, without rules and regulations, we would have a world without order, and a world without order would be anarchy. And anarchy is bad. The next one I have is from Oliver. Sometimes matters of the heart can hurt more than a punch in the shoulder.
Hmm.
The line from the nurse at the hospital when she's talking to Norman about the vintage Valentine. She says, "Things said to the one you love are only meant for the two of you. They're not meant to be shared with the world." The last one I have is from Shane when Oliver shared how he got started in the DLO. She says, "Leave the past in the past where it belongs," which is really good advice for anybody.
Mhm.
We have some trivia for the Coastables. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll go with an easy one. You're gonna know this one, but I'm gonna do it anyway. What street does Shane live on?
Oh,
Is it A, Cardinal Street, B, Robin Way, C, Blue Jay Lane, or D, Yellowbird Lane or Yellowbird Way?
Yellowbird Way.
Yellowbird Way, yeah, you got it. Yeah, I had to stop the video on the card there at the beginning to catch that, catch the address.
Yeah. What year was the Gaylord Street Cafe established where Oliver went to read the letter?
Oh, jeez.
1970,
Oh,
1963, 1982, or 1954?
oh, jeez.
If you look closely, you can kind of see it on the awning.
Really?
So, where it says the Gaylord Street Cafe, there's a little line under it.
All right, I'm going with 1970.
Meh.
No, jeez. I have no clue.
1963.
Oh, I was gonna say that one. Oh, I almost said that one. All right, I got another one. Okay. The end when Rita's holding up those cue cards to Norman in the DLO. That is a nod to a movie. What movie?
Oh gosh.
What movie is that from? Is it from Say Anything, The Breakfast Club, Love Actually, or The Lake House?
I actually couldn't tell you because I haven't seen any of those.
You have no way. You haven't seen any of those? No way. Oh my gosh. Well, I stumped you. Usually I don't stump you on these questions.
Oh my gosh.
I got you on one.
I'm just
All right,
going to guess.
Take a guess.
I'm going to say Love Actually.
Oh my gosh. You are such a good guesser. You got it.
I got it.
You've never seen Love Actually? Oh, I watch it every year because it's a Christmas movie.
I'll have to check it out. I've heard good things
it.
about it.
Yeah, I watch it every Christmas. Yes. A guy rings a woman's doorbell and he's standing outside and he's holding up these cue cards because he doesn't want or doesn't want her husband to hear what he's saying.
What is one thing that is in the DLO refrigerator when Oliver is looking for Yoo-hoo? An apple, ketchup, bottled water, mayonnaise.
What was the last one?
Mayonnaise.
Oh, I know because you told me you know how to spell ketchup. So the answer is mayonnaise. All right. Is it mayonnaise?
Nope. It's not mayonnaise.
You don't know how to spell ketchup. It's ketchup then.
No, I didn't want to give you the answer. I was just telling you I didn't know how to spell it.
Wait, well, what's the answer then?
You don't know?
No.
It's an apple.
Wait, I thought,
There was only two things in the fridge in that scene. an apple, and a bottle of mustard.
Oh, okay. You were looking up the wrong answer. What were you looking up?
Oh no, when I typed one of the choices, when I typed mayonnaise, it just auto-corrected because I had spelled it wrong. That's all.
Oh, mayonnaise. That was the word. Okay. I thought that was the right answer. Oh, okay.
No.
That was the wrong answer. I got
No.
you. I got you. All right. This one's an easy one. You're going to know this one. Abe Lincoln's fiance. What was her first name? Was it Elizabeth, Anne, Sue, or Mary?
And that's too easy.
That's too easy. All right, I got two more. Keep going. You got any more?
Yeah. What year was written on Ryan's card talking about homelessness in the last debate before he turned himself in? 1976, 1985, 1977, or 1962?
Oh, it was written on his card. They were talking about homeless, something about homeless.
Yeah, homelessness. There's a shot of the card. They actually show it.
1962.
Ding, 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 ding.
I got it. Oh, that was a guess.
Yes. I have one more, but I'll let you go first.
All right. What is the Denver zip code?
Oh, gosh.
Is it 84622, 84623, 84624, or 84625? It was written on Shane's Valentine, the envelope.
Oh, gosh, you're good. I didn't even catch that. Oh, I'm going to guess 82624, I think is what you said.
84624?
84624.
It was the first one, 84622.
Oh, that was a good one.
Well, you knew her the street she lived on, though. How'd you know that?
Yeah.
You knew that.
I just didn't catch the number.
Oh, you didn't catch the zip code?
Yeah. What year was on the trophy in the Brown Palace won by Maddie and Becca? 2007, 2009, 2001, or 2005?
Oh, boy. Wait. Oh, I know. It had to be 2001.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, because it was 15 years before this movie took place, right?
Okay, yep. So that
Yeah.
would make sense. Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's see. I got one more, and this is an easy one. You're going to know it. What does Serge give to Norman and Rita? A stamp collection, vintage Valentines, coin collection, or comic book collection?
Vintage Valentine.
Yes.
This was so much fun. Thanks again for joining us on our recap of From the Heart.
You're welcome. Anytime.
We'll have to have you back again sometime.
You got it. Anytime. And you're going to have to come on the GAC YAK too.
Yes, definitely. I would love to.
So we can recap and talk about GAC movies.
All right, Postables. Well, I think that wraps up our recap of From the Heart. We will be back next week recapping 1 in a Million. We will see you next time. Thanks so much for listening. We love y'all. Bye.
Bye.